Hello, I'm horceror. I want to find out what makes every single killer tick. There's one big glaring issue with that though. I play the Nemesis, essentially only the Nemesis. I physically cannot get thousands of hours of experience on every single character. So, I'm going to be interviewing people that do have those thousands of hours. One for every single killer. Welcome to Stars of the Fog. Alright, hello, and welcome back to today's episode of Stars of the Fog. Our killer today is one from a relatively new horror-based media, came out relatively recently, Stranger Things, and of course we'll be talking about the Demogorgon. So, my guest today, a prolific Demogorgon player, a demo player, a demo enjoyer, the Demogorgon. I'll just let him introduce himself. So, hello, who are you? What are you known for, and why the Demogorgon?
Hi, my name is GGSAREUP. Most people call me Grant or GG's on Twitch. I've been playing Dead by Daylight for about 5 years or so, and I'm most well known for playing the Demogorgon.
Of course.
I would say about half my killer hours are on the Demogorgon, and I've been playing demo for at least 4 of those years.
Mode. And when did you really get started with Dead by Daylight itself? When did that happen?
So about I think September 2020, I reconnected with one of my old friends. And a friend of a friend actually told me that he was streaming on Twitch, and I was like, oh shit, yo, let me, check it out and see what's up. And he was playing Dead by Daylight, and it was like a game that I had heard about in the past, but never really looked into a lot. And the game looked really interesting. And I actually saw him playing Michael Myers, and I was like, wait, this game has Michael Myers from Halloween in it? And from there, I was like, oh, dude, okay, I gotta check this out, because I really enjoy the Halloween movies, and I thought it was just really interesting that you could actually play as the characters, because I had heard of Friday the 13th at that time, but you could only play as just Jason. So I just wanted to see what was up with it. And once I downloaded it, I actually started by playing Survivor at first, and it was a lot of fun. But the new player experience for Dead by Daylight is a little rough.
Wow, so horror video reference.
Yeah, wow, what a surprise, huh? And I had absolutely no idea how to play, first and foremost, but what the different killers did, which for me was the main selling point of getting into the game in the first place, was that there were so many other different killers that you can play. So I decided that I was just gonna give all the killers a try and just see what was up. And I had seen Stranger Things season 1 at this point, and I really loved the Demogorgon's design. I thought the aesthetic of the killer was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed the fact that he was a creature in a game of people that are mostly human or very humanoid. And
at this point in time, I think Demogorgon is the only you can make cases for, I don't know, hag or pig, I guess, but Demogorgon was the first creature killer. Everything else up to this point was some form of just some guy.
Yeah, no, completely. In addition to being from a piece of media that I did enjoy, his uniqueness is really what drew me to him. When I first started playing, I mainly played M1 killers just to learn fundamentals. Mm-hmm. Because I was just trying to learn how to run every tile, how to use your power effectively and stuff. And a big problem I ran into at the time in 2020, things were a little bit different for DBD, is that it was really hard for me to end chases quickly as M1 killers. And a big problem with that was survivors reusing windows and playing really safe around pallets. So I knew that after a while playing M1 killers, I wanted to get into a killer that had a little bit more of a proactive chase power and could shut down loops a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And I actually started by watching Bronx. I looked up Demogorgon DBD, I think, on YouTube, and I saw a video of Bronx playing demo, and I was like, dude, this killer does look really cool in game, and he can break pallets. That's super interesting. I have to try that out.
Boy, do I have a pallet breaking killer for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, you and I are one and the same when it comes to not liking pallets and pre-dropping. So as soon as I found out that you could destroy pallets with the shred, that's when I knew. I was like, okay, this is gonna be sick. I'm super stoked. And then everything kind of just went from there. I fell in love with the killer. I started streaming DBD essentially right when I started playing the game. So my entire journey of streaming has been me just being an absolute complete noob, 10-hour Andy hiding in the corner, a survivor, waiting for the killer to pass when you hear the terror radius, to now my entire experience streaming has been me picking up the Demogorgon for the first time all the way till now, which I feel I have a pretty great understanding of the killer.
And when was the moment specifically, if you have one, where you feel you really got Demogorgon, you got everything down, and about how long did that take if you're there, of course. I mean, there's always more to master.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that there are two main points, or like two main like areas of my demo career where I felt that way. The first one is, when it comes to streaming, it can be kind of overwhelming sometimes talking to like chat, paying attention to like alerts, and then like actually playing the game and like delivering like good content. And for the longest time when I was playing Killer, it was really, really hard for me to be able to feel like I was giving enough attention to the game and the chat. And I felt like I couldn't really like autopilot very well for a long time. But I remember there was just like this month of time after a couple hundred hours of like playing demo where I really felt like I could completely autopilot the Killer and be able to like approach different tiles in the optimal position, like shred at optimal times without really having to like think very proactively about it. And it almost became like, it was muscle memory. It was like second nature. And that was like a really big realization for me. And then the second time was when I was preparing for a charity tournament a couple years ago.
One you were hosting or one that you were in?
One that I was in.
I'm just asking
because...
because...
a quick sidebar. I think it was DJ Slushy.
Okay.
I know that there's DJ Slushy and then Slushy, I think. They're two different creators, so I don't want to say the wrong name.
Confusing, for sure. I think it's DJ Slushy.
Well, yeah, as a sidebar, I was invited by Fox and Butter to be on their team. Yeah, so I was preparing for a charity tournament a couple years ago, and some of my team members had asked me to play demo for a set. So I was scrimming against some of them and their friends, and I was doing really well. I felt like I had a lot of success. And when it came to the tournament match, I was super locked in, and we were raising money for a really great cause. And I felt like I, did demo justice. I got to showcase a lot of really cool techs and had a really good result. So that would probably be like the second moment that I was like, what's the word for it? Like
confident in your ability?
Yeah, that was like the second moment that I was like, I felt very confident. Like
when you're like, yeah, I got this. I get it now.
And then, like now years later, even from there, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe it's already been 5 years since I've been playing this game, but time really flies. But now it's, my knowledge for the character and all the little small idiosyncrasies is like really grown.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, how time flies. And after all this time playing the Demogorgon, what do you think is like your absolute favorite part of the Killer? Like, what is the thing that always keeps you coming back? What is the number one thing? Like anything about him, of course, like visually, sound, attack, like what's the number one, your favorite thing?
Ooh, well, I would say it's between two things. One is the aesthetic of the Killer. These days, I don't really pay attention to like Stranger Things media all too much, but the Demogorgon's design and like the way that just like everything about him in game, the way he moves around, the sounds he makes, the fact that he's like a creature, it's just all super interesting to me. And then as far as the gameplay is concerned, it's definitely the shred. I think the shred is really the thing that causes me to come back to the Killer the most and like look forward to playing the Killer. The portals are great and they're a lot better now, don't get me wrong, but the chase power is what really makes me want to go out of my way to play the Killer, because I think chases are just the most interesting part of DBD for me, like by far, compared to like more macro gameplay.
I agree 100%. I don't care about holding a 3-gen. I want to kill that guy.
Yes, 100%. Most of the time, I know that you and I are like kind of the same in this regard, but I don't really go out of my way to play optimally, especially on stream. Like I just want to try to have the most amount of fun possible. And usually for me, what that means is just going out of my way to chase as many unique survivors as I can, not really play in a way that I wouldn't particularly enjoy playing against myself, if that makes sense.
Playing a game for fun? You can't do that.
I know it's not allowed on DVD. That's my bad. I'll have to rescind that statement.
Yeah, you're getting, this is going public, buddy. It's over for you.
It's already too late for me.
It's already too late for you. So just shredding it, and I'm probably gonna put the shredding Demogorgon on screen right now that I drew.
Yes, please do.
The Shredogorgon, the second Shredogorgon. I've drawn him twice. And on the opposite side of things, what would you say is your least favorite part about Demogorgon? What would make you quit the Killer if the good was not as good as it was?
Okay, well, the first thing that I guess has been like frustrating about Demo in the last like year till the last 2 years mainly has to do with how collision works in DBD and the adding of like a lot of just random stuff that's on the ground that has collision that you wouldn't expect, or the placement of invisible walls, especially like at elevated surfaces, that prevent you from shredding from elevation for a further distance. And maybe we'll get into that more when it comes to like the actual text for the Killer. But Demo shred is kind of like Wesker light, I guess, is what a lot of people have been saying. There's been a lot of discussion on Twitter regarding the Wesker-ification of Killers.
Would you say actually that because Demogorgon came out first, that Demogorgon is, well, no, Wesker is the Demogorgon heavy rather than him being the Wesker light, because he was here first.
I think there's a spectrum, and I think it should be the Demo spectrum, not the Wesker spectrum. I think you're right.
You're right.
I'm to petition that on Twitter myself.
Okay. I see the vision.
Yeah. And then as far as like what they would have to do to the killer, dude, what would they have to do to the killer?
No, I'm just asking, like, what's your biggest dislike about the killer?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say it has to do with the collision and the random placement of different objects on the map, and then also the addition of the invisible walls at a lot of structures and mainly main buildings that prevent you from shredding from the top.
Just a bunch of random shit and invisible walls, basically.
Yeah, and as far as like Demo's actual kit is concerned, there aren't really a lot of like immediate bugs. Thankfully, I know that there are a lot of killers that a lot of people that I know enjoy that are just riddled with bugs like 24/7. So
yeah, that's.
I mean, I'm happy that that's, I guess, the case. But you know, who knows? There's always time behavior to add more bugs to the killer. So we'll see.
What the hell? And while you're talking about it, how many bugs does Demo have? Are there any like lesser known ones, more known ones? Because like, I'm gonna be real, I don't know a single thing about the Demogorgon. I don't know if he has bugs or not. What type of shit is he dealing with behind the scenes that non-demo players might not know about?
To my knowledge, there have been a lot of bugs, most of which are not like super detrimental to the killer. As far as like current Dead by Daylight right now, there's no immediate bugs that I think are, I guess, a very big detriment. There's like some small things when it comes to the way that your portals work, and usually most of it is on the survivor side. If you use your portal like across the map, sometimes you can actually see Demo's character model fly through the air at a rapid pace, like slightly underneath the map, depending on where you teleport from, which can be really jarring for survivors. And then sometimes he won't have an animation when he comes out of his portal, so he'll just appear fully emerged from the portal. There have been many bugs that have been patched, but most of them are mainly like for fun things that you could do as a Demogorgon. Like a lot of people refer to it as like Sky Demo, or being able to like escape the map in certain areas by using a fully charged shred. But most of them are not like an active detriment to his gameplay, which I'm very, very thankful for.
Fun bugs. Very cool. Very
yes.
nice.
Most of them are like very, very fun. That's a good way of putting it. Like they're cool, I guess.
I think there's like one specific bug I'm thinking of right now where you could like take a survivor with you through a portal. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I didn't know if there's going to be a section about like favorite like bugs in the past, but I do have two. Section. I do have two of my like favorite bugs from the history of Demogorgon. I'm not sure if this actually has been patched out, but essentially what you could do is you could have a survivor on top of your portal, and then you could like spam the pickup hotkey as you teleport through the portal, and you could take the survivor through the upside down with you. Like that's an example of a bug that's just essentially strictly for fun. Like that is never going to happen in a real game. Like if everyone is like playing optimally, and it's just something like fun that you can show survivors. Demo can also use like his shred on elevated surfaces to get onto certain objects, and there have been many times where you can like shred to just completely ridiculous locations back in the day. Most of them have been like kind of been patched by them adding collision to these objects. That kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about with like adding invisible walls and stuff. And then one of my other favorite bugs is there are like a lot of maps that you could go outside of the map on with Demogorgon, notably like RPD and the new Ormond Lake Mine map. And it's just really funny to like see a Demogorgon like behind like a fence, like trapped outside of the map.
Help him.
Yeah, like somebody help him, please. And I just think it's like really funny. I've seen a lot of like TikToks about this, and I don't know, it just makes me laugh every time.
And a little bit of a conversational left turn. Sometimes the segue is not there. How good do you think he is? I don't necessarily mean just like on a tier list, but like balance wise, strength wise, like where do you think he's at? Because you have a lot of experience with the Demogorgon, of course. So do you think he's good?
No, that's a good question. I would probably put Demo somewhere like on current DBD around like low B tier. I've seen a lot of discussion on Twitter about him being like high C tier now, all the way up till top of B tier. Most people don't really say that he's like A tier these days. There was kind of like yeah, there was like some conversation revolving around it. Well, a couple things, I guess. Main one is that I think Demogorgon is like very, very balanced. There's not really a lot that I would change about his kit right now, because I think the shred is in a great spot. If they were to buff the shred in any way, I think it would be significantly less fun for people to play against. And I know that a lot of people that don't like Demo right now really don't like his ability to essentially freely zone survivors at will. And I think buffing anything to do with the shred would just make that that situation like a lot worse, and I think it's in a good spot. I think you could probably give the portals a little bit more love. I think the most recent patch that they did to buff the portals and just like in multiple different ways was really great, but I don't really also think that it like pushed him up in the tier list. And then also at the same time, you know, a lot of killers that are like very, very low tier killers have been getting buffs, and most of those buffs have pushed them significantly up in the tier list, and it seems like that trend is going to continue. So over time, you know, we might see a tier list like within the next couple years where like demo is definitively in like the bottom 10, if not already right now, by some people's metric. It's also tough too because like I play a lot of demo, so maybe my perception of the killer might be a little bit higher to like someone who has like a general game knowledge's perception of the killer. If you're locked in as demo, like in a 1v1 chase, there are some small things that survivors can do to like really buy your team more time, but kind of like Nemesis, like if you know what you're doing, like you're pretty much, if you're in that effective range of the shred, like you're gonna get hit the majority of the time. And like as survivor, the onus is really on you to just hope that the Demogorgon like messes up most of the time. And then also in that same vein, just like a quick aside, I was actually doing an experiment like within the last 6 months or so where I was monitoring the Nightlight.gg stats, which is, it's a third party stat system. Tracker. It's not it's a stat tracker. It's not affiliated with behavior. So people have to go out of their way to upload their own stats, which, you know, might change the way that the samples work. But consistently for the last couple months, when I have looked and like wrote down the data, Demogorgon has been in the bottom 10 for kill rate. So that could be a couple reasons. Well, one, his play rate is really low. So maybe the people that are playing demo are either, you know, very new, don't really know what they're doing, and they just like want to try the killer, or they're very experienced demo players that are playing as like wholesome chunguses that are letting people go. And then I don't really know what else I want to add there, I guess, but pretty much just say that it seems like, at least from the stats that people are going out of their way to upload, that Demogorgon's kill rate is pretty low. So just to take that with a grain of salt, because we've also seen things like Skull Merchant, Onryo, and Freddy's kill rates in the past be exceptionally high, even though most people, you know, usually have thought that those killers were in the C or D tier, depending on who you're asking. Just something to be aware of, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And could very much be like a playstyle thing as well. So I do want to ask a little bit on the expansion past just the playstyle with the Demogorgon's lore. Are you strictly a lore guy? Are you strictly a playstyle guy? Or is it like a mix of both? Because some people, they just like the lore. Some people, they just raw gameplay. You know, like there's always a little mix. And I know you mentioned enjoying the show like season 1, not really anymore, but what's the like ratio there for you?
Well, it's actually funny that you said that, because in Stranger Things season 1, when the focus is on like the group of kids, I forget what they call themselves, Hellfire Club, I believe.
That was in season 2.
That was in season 2. Do they have a name when they're just playing
D&D?
D&D?
I don't think they have a name. I don't know.
Okay. Well, actually, funnily enough, when they're playing D&D and they mention like the Demogorgon as like the antagonist of their session, it actually caused me to look up the Demogorgon from Dungeons and Dragons and do more research about Dungeons and Dragons and like want to learn more about it from there, which is just like it's kind of funny that the Demogorgon DVD potentially got me into Dungeons and Dragons as a, you know, like a weird tangential thing, which is, it's like really cool. But as far as like the lore of like the Upside Down and Hawkins and everything like that, I would say that I'm mildly interested in it. I think more so it's about the aesthetic of the killer to me, and also the community reception to Demogorgon, for the most part, outside of people that, you know, usually just don't like his ability to zone people, is very positive. I would say that obviously, you know, I do play demo more than any other killer, but on average, people are like more excited to face the Demogorgon or have like some form of positive reception or reinforcement, like in the post game chat or in my stream. And also people like disconnect or give up significantly less, even if or when I'm, you know, performing like better than another killer, which is interesting. I'm not sure if it's just that people enjoy playing against a Demogorgon, or maybe it has something to do with Demogorgon leaving Dead by Daylight and people not, you know, having the opportunity to really like see him. There is also this like perception that Demogorgon is like the community dog, I guess, which does play some part into it. Funnily enough, like I would say that the thing that I see the most in post game chat is like, let me pet the dog, or, you know, love you demo dog, or stuff like that. So I think kind of turning demo into this like really friendly animal has done a lot for the killer's perception in the community. And then as far as like the technical side and like as far as gameplay is concerned, I think that the biggest thing that has continued to, you know, keep me interested in the killer is just like finding more unique ways to like use my shred in an optimal way.
And while you brought it up yourself, about how frequently do you think you run into like fans of your killers? And of course, how often do you feel like you run into antis of your killer? Like we just went over how the community feels in general, like it feels generally trending positively, but when you see like a demo fan, like about one in how many games, and then like how often do you run into like a demo hater, like I'm gonna destroy that dog?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. I will say, like we were touching on before, I would totally say that on average people like go out of their way to try to be nice to me when I'm playing demo versus like another killer on the roster. And like that says a lot, because if you as a survivor are going out of your way to initiate the niceness towards a killer, if that killer is not receptive to that niceness, like your game is over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that killer like puts you on a hook and chooses to take advantage of you essentially like not doing anything and trying to like, you know, be nice or friendly, your game is completely over. So it means a lot to me when survivors will go out of their way to do stuff like that to initiate the niceness, because like I know that they're putting their own game at risk just because they enjoy the killer in some regard, which I think is really, really cool. I would say I very rarely come across people that really don't like demo, even with the tendency for people to complain in post-game chat just all across DBD. I would say most of the time when people are complaining when I'm playing demo, it's not like because of demo as a killer or the things that demo can do. It's more like generic killer stuff, complaining about like camping or tunneling when their chases are like 10 seconds long. Like I've already chased 3 other survivors, you know, just people's tendency to complain about stuff that's just completely irrelevant. Yeah, it's funny because I play a lot of Wraith. Wraith is my secondary main.
Brother.
And let's just say the community reception between demo and Wraith are like, from what I've seen, 2 very different extremes. Like we were touching on before, you know, I try to play pretty chill
wholesome
on average.
Chungus demo, blues into your other killers.
Like a little wholesome Chungus. So like even on killers like Wraith, which in my opinion, I think Wraith has a reputation for being a, let's just say a very optimal gamer, or maybe an asshole, depending on who you ask. I get flamed on Wraith more than any other killer, like by far. People really do not like playing against Wraith, or they just feel like it just feels like they always have something to say about Wraith. And I think that just has more so to do with like his reputation. But if you encounter an anonymous Wraith, most of the time you just have to expect like they're just gonna be playing optimally. Like that's just the expectation immediately. Like once you load into the end game script, like, oh right, yeah.
Oh, it's the Wraith. Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, it's the Wraith. Oh, it's actually Philip controlling the Wraith. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's Philip Pajama. That's it's him. It's him right there.
Yeah, in a roundabout way to answer your question, it definitely does seem to me at least that people are very excited and very enthusiastic to encounter the Demogorgon compared to any other killer that I play often.
It's actually kind of funny because you also brought up something else that I will bring up now. As far as the going next thing, the Go-Next Epidemic, about how often do you have people disconnecting or going next on hook against the Demogorgon, but also like, what are your general thoughts on it? Do you have like ideas? I know Behavior is cooking something up right now that they haven't told us literally anything about, just like, we're working on it, it'll come soon, TM, but going next, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so kind of bleeding into our previous point, I would say that when I do play demo, people for the most part don't really like DC or give up on first hook. The only real time I'll see people go out of their way to do that on average is if something that their teammates did was very disruptive to their game plan. So it's not really a result of something I'm doing, more so like I'm leaving the hook for 70 seconds, no one has saved them, and then the second they, you know, tier 2, like somebody pulls them, it's like, dude, like what are you talking about? It's just mainly stuff that their teammates are doing. When I play Survivor or other killers, I notice people do DC or give up even at like the most minor inconvenience. So I think there is a subset of people that maybe are just too burnt out on the game, or just don't really like have a lot of interest outside of specific like killers or maps that, you know, go out of their way to go next. But as far as like my overall thoughts on the Go-Next epidemic, I think that it has gotten a lot worse in the last year. I've seen a lot more people watching other streams, YouTube videos, discussion on Twitter, like even playing in Discord with friends, where people just seem to give up or go next at the slightest inconvenience. I'm not really sure sure, like, as far as what they could do to kind of prevent stuff like this. I know there's been talk of like removing the DC penalty or providing incentives for people to stay in the match. I would prefer to go the route of positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement. We do have the surrender feature coming up, which might help to mitigate some of the
good. Yeah, for sure.
Might help to mitigate some of the like frustration that has to do with you know, people giving up. I think the worst situation that you can be in, though, especially if you just like want to play solo queue survivor, is the second your one teammate decides to immediately give up and they're incentivized to not DC because they get a penalty, and then they just, you know, intentionally die on first hook. Like, your game is over. So I feel like there should be maybe some kind of incentive to have you stay in that match if the game can detect that, you know, somebody is going next immediately. And another quick thing as well is, somebody was talking about removing the ability to like unhook yourself outside of things like Deliverance or Wicked on the first hook.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of an interesting thing to explore. I'm not really sure what the ramifications of that might be, but I think that would kind of give people the opportunity to maybe, not to sound condescending, but maybe, you know, calm down a little bit. Maybe it's not the end of the world that you went down, and you can, you know, continue to play the match out and just kind of see what happens. Because sometimes people will try to go next, like even after they get an absolute juice or chase and like win the game for their team. And I'm like, dude, you'd like totally clutch this game out for everyone. You know, like why do you want to give up now? Like you're in a fantastic spot as a team, and stuff like that is like always very surprising to me.
Like during my streak, I think it was like game 60 or something, I had like an Ashe run me for 2 gens, and like we can talk about the ramifications of me not going and chasing someone else, but like, he ran me for like 2-3 gens, like my second or third chase of the game. I was down to 1 gen, I had like maybe 4 hooks, and he goes next, and I'm like, oh well, I guess I don't lose my streak, thanks man. But like, you won the game. But I think it's very much like an individualist mindset rather than thinking as a team type of deal, where like, yeah, sure, maybe you're gonna die in the basement, but like literally everyone else would have gotten out if he just stayed in the game. Like, it was wild.
I totally agree with you, and I think that is the reason. And I also want to say that when I first started playing the game, things like, you know, getting tunneled or camped and everything would like frustrate me as a newer player. But once I kind of started to think from the perspective of the survivors are a team, and like trying to get the team a good result, my like outlook on the game has been significantly more like positive as a result. Like, I'm more than willing to go out of my way to do something that will almost assuredly guarantee that the 3 other survivors will escape, versus like, well, my team might die, but like I have a chance to get out, so I'll do this instead. And it also just like, I don't know, it feels more rewarding as well, that it feels like you can make the optimal play for the team rather than the selfish one for yourself.
For sure. So while we're still talking about this kind of sort of going next, things they don't enjoy type of deal, you did briefly bring up holding the shred and then getting a guaranteed hit thing, but from a survivor's point of view, what do you think is the most like frustrating part about playing against the Demogorgon? Like
things that Demogorgon can do that are like really annoying for survivors?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I would say like the immediate thing, the thing that I hear the most, the thing that I've experienced playing against Demo, and the thing that I do to survivors a lot is just the ability to zone. Demogorgon is just by far one of the best zoning killers in the game. Essentially, what zoning means is the ability to like constantly have pressure with your power to prevent survivors from doing certain actions. So because when you're charging your shred, you're moving at almost survivor movement speed. I believe it's 96.5% of survivor movement speed. I'm not 100% sure because they added into the base kit.
Okay.
But you're pretty close. But you essentially have the ability to charge your shred and have a very, very small penalty where you can act immediately, even if you cancel it, to prevent survivors from running into an open space, running to a pallet, running through a hallway, running to a window. And it can be very, very frustrating, especially since it's really easy for Demo to create dead zones by zoning you with the power and then like shredding a dropped pallet. And then you're kind of just stuck. There's not really a lot else that you can do. And the people that I see discuss killers that they don't enjoy, that's like the number one thing that I see them reference when it comes to like not enjoying playing against the Demogorgon.
Just zoning in dead zones, really. Okay.
Yeah, just zoning and ability to create dead zones. Yeah.
But what about you personally when you play Survivor? Do you enjoy playing against the Demogorgon?
Dude, I love playing against Demogorgon. Honestly, demos, yeah, demos are they're kind of a dying breed. You know, like with the license going away,
it came back.
I don't even know how long ago it was. Yeah, when the license like went away, dude, I don't even know. Like I saw like maybe a handful of demos like that entire time. Most of them are like turbo juicer Demogorgons because you know they bought the killer before. They probably really enjoy playing the killer. They're still playing the killer, but I didn't really get to encounter a lot of people that were like newer to the killer, which I would kind of love to talk about the license, the whole license going away thing, and like kind of what that meant. So we can maybe get into that after. But a big thing for me when it comes to like playing against demo is I feel feel like I get to use the knowledge of like playing the killer and what I've learned and like what good things like other survivors do to like, you know, buy time for their team or counter my power, or counter in quotations, I guess, and like use those things that I've picked up from other good survivors against the demo players that I play against, which is like it's really fun to me.
Do you think there's anything especially that does counter the Demogorgon? Like, is there a perk? Is there any like winning a nugget of advice you want to give for survivor players? Anything like that?
Oh yeah, totally. Well, there's like three main things that I would say are maybe a little bit more intermediate to advanced that you can do to make the Demogorgon's life a little bit more challenging. The first one is that a lot of people in solo queue have the tendency to greed pallets quite a bit. And most of the time, if the demo is like within effective shred range of you, it's better to just drop the pallet and let him break it and get distance than it is to like greed the pallet and then end up getting hit at the same tile if it's like not a super safe tile. It's better to just drop the pallet or pre-drop the pallet and then like let him break it and get to like a safer tile or a safer spot than it is to like greed and then ended up getting hit anyways, because like you're not going to gain effective distance away from the tile. And if the tile is like shreddable and very playable for the demo, you're almost assuredly gonna like go down at that tile. And I would say that most like intermediate players in solo queue do try to greed pallets a lot, and it can be very punishing against demo, like if demo knows what they're doing. And then the second one is like more of a team focused thing, but demo does not really have a lot of lethality in his base kit. You do recover from a successful shred a lot faster than a successful basic attack, especially if you use my favorite add-on Blackheart, which allows you to recover 10% faster. Most of the time, you really want to be playing like altruistically against demo and taking hits for your teammates when you can, especially if there's like a dead zone that's been created, because you know demo does have to commit to chases, doesn't have the ability to insta down. The map mobility is like kind of dependent on portals that have been pre-placed, so if you can deny the hook, it's like very advantageous for you as a team, especially if you have like good perks to reset and everything. And then the number one thing that you can do to counter Demogorgon, which is more of an advanced tip, is just learn how to crouch tech. Playing against people that know how to crouch tech consistently, especially like as a full lobby of as a team know how to do it, is like so much more backbreaking than people that do not know how to crouch tech.
It's a gigantic pain in the ass.
It is a massive pain in the ass. And you know, you can crouch tech. Do you need me to explain crouch tech, or where you put like a? I'm not really sure the specifics of like why crouch tech works the way that it does. I've been informed that it has something to do with your hitbox being smaller when you're crouching, but essentially it's the action of crouching in different locations or crouching and moving slightly to the side of where the Demogorgon is shredding that makes the shred miss when normally if you are standing up or running or whatever, it would hit. So the biggest like applications that I see of crouch tech are in certain doorways where inside like where the demo is inside of like whatever the doorway is slightly more elevated than like the outside where you're crouching, and it causes them to miss. You can do these things with like against like Billy and Blight as well. The biggest one is on stairs though. There are a lot of maps that have like staircases or like longer staircases. I think RPD is like the immediate example that comes to mind. When demo fully charges a shred and goes up the stairs, it seems like he's traveling like way faster because like the effective distance is smaller, so it looks like he's like almost like double speed, and you're coming from like the bottom up, so the crouch, like you can't really crouch to dodge the shred in that regard, and you're like almost like guaranteed to hit if you play it well when you're shredding upstairs. Downstairs is a completely different story. If the survivor like crouches like almost at all, even with a well-placed shred, you're pretty much gonna miss every time. So like that really helps to save a lot of time and allows you to get to safer tiles if you know how to use a crouch tech. And I think a crouch tech is just a good thing that like most intermediate to advanced survivors should have like in their arsenal, more so against other stronger killers that are kind of a problem like for people that are playing solo to deal with, like Billy and Blight. Demo is just kind of like an unfortunate collateral damage of a killer that is like lower tier but also is affected by this tech.
For sure. So you briefly mentioned Blackheart, which is one of the Demogorgon's add-ons. It is a brown add-on, gives you 10% cooldown on shred when you
hit the shred.
When you hit the shred. Yeah. So how do you feel about Demogorgon's add-ons? Do you think they're balanced? Do you think they're overtuned, undertuned? And with Blackheart, of course, being your favorite, as you said, but what are your favorite add-ons to run?
Well, I guess one thing I want to add in regards to Blackheart is if you are using Blackheart or even without Blackheart, what I would recommend doing is if the survivor is in a situation where they're in the open with no other objects in between you and them, and you have the ability to essentially like back rev them, I guess, you should almost always back shred them. You should always use your shred in those situations. The main reason is that you recover significantly faster. So think of it like you have a couple stacks of save the best for last. So yes, you take additional time to prep your shred and then use the shred compared to like just M1ing them in the back. But the effective distance that the survivor can make as a result of that successful hit is shorter. So it might be the difference between them making it to like a safe tile or not. So just something to keep in mind with Blackheart. And that's also just kind of the reason that I enjoy the add-on, is because you're able to just get into chases and hit people more often, quicker, get downs faster. It just feels like a very fluid experience. And in addition to Blackheart, I would say that Barb's Glasses is my second favorite add-on. I think that like 99.9% of demo players that I see in solo queue or that I watch content for pretty much use Barb's Glasses and Blackheart every single game, outside of something niche that they're trying or something unique that they're trying to do. But Barb's Glasses makes it so when you break a pallet with your shred, you recover 10% faster. So both of those kind of chase focused add-ons really incentivize you to be in chases as often as possible, break pallets quickly, and just like get into the action, which is my favorite thing about playing Killer, is just chasing people like we were touching on earlier. There are two underrated add-ons though, with a couple more fringe ones that I think that people should be kind of looking into more and trying out, that I've been having some success with. The one of them is Muse Guts, gives you one additional portal, but it actually decreases your missed shred recovery by 11%. So this allows you to go for a little bit more ambitious shreds if you are either practicing the Killer or you want to kind of do some crazy mind games like behind line of sight and try to surprise survivors. You're allowed to use that to catch up and gain a little bit more distance if you do miss. But my favorite like underrated add-on is definitely Red Moss. Demo did get buffed recently. Pretty much everything revolving around his portals got buffed recently. Red Moss essentially allows you to emerge from your portals completely silent, and also your undetectable is increased by 8 seconds when you emerge from your portals. So it goes from 5 seconds base kit to 13 seconds base kit, which Demo is moving at 4.6 meters per second when he's just walking around, right? So if you get 13 seconds of undetectability, that is a lot. That is a lot of effective distance that you can cover. Like Demo does have like that gurgling noise that kind of gives him away, but you do have to be really, really close for that. And if you can hear that gurgling, most of the time, if he's on the other side of the wall, you're like going to be immediately within shred range, like pretty, really close. So I think that more people should be trying that add-on out. There is a little bit of a downside, but like I think it's like pretty negligible for what it can provide. And then there's also a couple additional add-ons that I admittedly haven't really tested a ton that have gotten buffed recently, but I haven't really seen a lot of people enjoying them. I believe it's Lifeguard Whistle that allows you to get 2 additional portals. Most of the time I find that the 6 portals is like already enough, that I don't really feel like I need more, but could maybe lean into like certain playstyles where you're trying to like defend an area or double portal in like one spot to have that like safety net that you'll have an area on that side of the map to like go to if you need to. I would say overall though, Demo's add-ons are kind of lacking. I would really like to see Demo get an add-on pass and just have like maybe a little bit more of Barb's Glasses and Blackheart, which are just by far the most used add-ons, incorporated into his base kit, and then do a little bit more of like an overhaul in regards to the add-on design. There are some killers whose add-ons I think are like really interesting or like provide different playstyles. Some of them are a little maybe too good, but the ones that come to my mind are like Myers and Wraith, where even though some of the add-ons may be like very game-changing, I like how the add-ons can like help to dictate the type of playstyle that you're going to have. And I do kind of wish that Demo had more than that, other than just like generic number increase like across the board.
Yeah, Scott was saying the same thing about the Wraith, is that like they had a bunch of different playstyle add-ons and how they designed it, aside from them just being like, yellow, green, purple, same thing, different number, but like you could run multiple if you wanted. And it was just like borderline perfect add-on design in his eyes.
I probably am kind of preacher to the choir here, because I know that you're a Nemesis player, and
it must be nice having add-ons.
Yeah, well, you had one add-on, I guess, for a long time.
Yep, and now I have 2.
Yeah, nice. Wow. What was it, like 1,000% increase on your Liquor Tongue add-on?
It was ridiculous, yeah, something like that. So while we're talking about things we run, add-ons being one half of the situation, of course, what would you say are your favorite perks to run? And what would you say is like a usual build that you would run on the Demogorgon? And what's your favorite singular perk? And on top of that, what would you say is the number one perk that you think of and you're like, okay, this is a perk that Demogorgon uses better than literally everyone else, if such a thing exists?
Okay, yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with the usual build that I like to take, the blueprint build, I guess. The first perk being Corrupt Intervention. As with Nemesis, Demo does does have to spend some time like setting up at the beginning of the game, and Corrupt Intervention really helps with that. There are also a lot of maps that have like a very long effective distance between where you spawn and where the survivors spawn, and Corrupted Intervention I kind of like to think of as like insurance, or if you can't find somebody quickly, or the survivors are like split spawns on different gens and stuff, and it just makes the games feel a little bit longer and gives you more time to kind of get started, since early game can be so pivotal like to success for killer. I'd say the next perk that I really enjoy the most on demo is Bamboozle. Bamboozle is probably one of the best chase perks in the game, if not the best chase perk. A lot of people initially think of demo as just like a killer that could easily deny windows with the shred, so like why bother? Like why would you care about Bamboozle? Bamboozle really helps to shut down loops like very effectively and very efficiently. It lets you kind of like hit what I like to think of as like shred breakpoints around things like long wall jungle gyms or shack, or dealing with like very pesky windows like mother dwelling main window, or what is it, like Crotus Pen window, where it's like that one god window next to the stairs. Just like, you know, really annoying windows that survivors can use to prevent you from getting a down very efficiently. And also like there are a lot of mind games that you can do with Bamboozle that like really help to speed up the chases too. Like you can hide your red stain, go one way, and then like Bamboozle at like any of these tiles with long walls, and then like that little amount of time that Bamboozle provides you and like the ability for them to like not revault it allows you to essentially effectively zone the survivor. Like pre-vaulting windows with Bamboozle after doing like a light hide mind game, you can zone survivors like really efficiently, because they will have to re-enter things like shack, or like go around the wall for a long wall jungle gym, and like they'll have to run to the pallet, and you can have your shred like ready to go and, you know, deny them the pallet or what other like connected tile there is. And yeah, I would just say like Bamboozle is just like the #1 perk that you can take to just speed up your chases, like amongst like a lot of other killers too. And then I think Enduring is a perk as well that I try to run like every game if I can. Demo is really efficient at breaking pallets, but he does have to like ram his head into every pallet to break it. So there are some times where maybe your internet is going to be facing the survivor's internet, and it's just a battle of whose internet's going to win. And Demo can, you know, sometimes get hits like through pallets, and then you can recover really quickly. If the tile is unsafe with Enduring, it essentially means that like the survivor is going to die at that pallet without you needing to break it. It also helps to limit the like feel bad moments where you look like you're about to get a perfect shred, and then like you get stunned right when you're about to hit them, and then you just kind of like flop down without getting the hit, and you're like, damn, like that stinks. It just kind of helps in that regard. And then I think the best reason to run Enduring is you just don't really have to respect pallets. Like Demo can shoot through pallets very efficiently. So if you can just run through pallets, like with your, just like tapping your shred, it kind of limits the survivor's options quite a bit. And my favorite thing to do with Demo is the Enduring tech. I mean, you can kind of do this with any killer, but the Enduring tech essentially is where you swing into a pallet when the survivor is like expecting you to go around or play the pallet in a different way, and then you get the hit as they drop it, and you end up on the same side as the survivor. And then when they try to revault the pallet, you can just get the M, like turn around and get the M1, and you just 2-tap them. And I mean, that just feels like so good to do. Like that's just really fun. And then the last perk, most of the time that I take is Barbecue and Chili. Barbecue and Chili has a great synergy with Demo's kit. Most of the time when you spawn in and move across the map, you're going to be setting up a couple portals. Barbecue kind of just informs you where to go, and you can get there very quickly using the portals. And then there are like 2 other perks that I kind of swap out depending on like what's going on pretty often. The first one being Forced Hesitation. Like I was saying before, Demo kind of struggles with altruism, but is really good at defending hooks or like defending areas with the shred. And if you are looking to play optimally, Forced Hesitation is very challenging to deal with as survivor against Demo, because if the survivor is injured and going for the unhook and you down them right as the survivor gets unhooked, you're going to recover faster because you have things like Blackheart and like the base kit shred recovery speed. And then the survivor that's getting unhooked is now slowed, and you have a faster recovery. So from there, if you expect that they have some form of endurance, you can immediately peel it off by shredding them and then having a fast recovery. And they're still not super fast because the force hesitation is still applied, or you can just choose to wait the 10 seconds. But it really provides Demo a lot of like extra lethality, and that's definitely like, you know, something that you can take advantage of. And then one perk that I like to run when it looks like people are going to be going for flashlight saves or playing more altruistically is Infectious Fright. Demo kind of has the ability to get a lot of hits in like quick succession with your shreds, and Infectious Fright can inform you if people are around trying to do things like go for flashlight saves or try to like, you know, sabo or stuff like that. So it's really helpful for getting into chases immediately, like afterwards. Now, like as far as perks, I would say Demo synergizes with the majority of the best gem regression perks in the game. Like most of the time in solo queue, like I was saying before, I kind of like to play pretty chill, so I don't usually stack like a lot of slowdown. But if I were to pick a build that I think would be like the best build for him, I think it would involve something along the lines of like Corrupt Intervention, Pain Res, Grim Embrace, and then either like Bamboozle if you want to speed chases up, Dead Man Switch if you want to block gens, or like Eruption if you want to play like more of a macro, like 3 to 4 gen kind of focus game.
Makes sense.
Like I'm usually gonna be running some combination of those on average.
And do you think there's like any one specific perk that is like the Demogorgon perk TM?
I don't know if it's only a Demogorgon perk, but I would say it's Force Hesitation. I think Force Hesitation like really synergizes with this kit. I don't really see a lot of people run Force Hesitation, but when most people do have Force Hesitation on a killer that can take advantage of it, it feels so scary to play against. Like it really limits your options. Kind of like when a killer has like save and you don't want to go for the unhook, it's like similar situation. Like it really increases Demo's lethality more than a lot of other killers. Like there's some killers like Bubba that can run Force Hesitation, but like most of the time if Bubba's camping the hook, like you're not gonna go in and trade like against Bubba most of the time, especially like in solo queue. And like if they have Force Hesitation, like it makes the situation a lot worse, but like you're not really gonna do it anyways, I guess. But most people kind of disrespect Demo when it comes to like his ability to, I guess, like proxy hooks or trade hooks, I guess. And Force Hesitation really unlocks more of that potential than like any other killer in my mind.
All right, cool. And when you're talking about Corrupt, of course, you're talking about like sometimes maps are too big. So what is your favorite map? What is your least favorite map, like for you personally? And are these the same as your killer's best and worst maps? And what would those be?
Well, I can immediately tell you that my 2 least favorite maps to play on, ironically, are Hawkins and Larry's. The main reason being that it is just really hard to get optimal shred angles in a lot of tiles or rooms because of the like 90-degree turning nature of those 2 maps. I would say overall, I don't particularly enjoy playing on indoor maps, but I think like the game and Midwich are a lot more passable and a lot more fun. I kind of just find myself really struggling to like land shreds at a lot of different tiles. Hawkins more so because like there are just so many different twists and turns, and Larry's because like sometimes you just get these ridiculous setups on Larry's where it's like a window connected to a window and it just feels like really hard to get a good angle. And then as far as like my favorite maps to play, it's usually maps that are more open where I can use like elevation to my advantage by shredding from an increased elevation. There aren't a lot of like random objects that are scattered like throughout tiles that can kind of like prevent you from getting a clean shred. So usually those things are like Auto Haven, McMillan. Dead Dog Saloon is one that I enjoy quite a bit. If I had to pick 2 like specific maps that I really like playing on from those realms, I would definitely say Coal Tower and Wrecker's Yard because they're relatively small and they feel like a lot more balanced compared to some of the other maps in those realms. And then in addition to maps that I don't like particularly enjoy playing on, there's like the generic Survivor good maps that are very large or have a very large effective distance or concentration of safe tiles, like things like Eyrie of Crows, Garden of Joy, Badham. But with Badham specifically, there are some techs that you can do to make your life a little bit more interesting. And I don't particularly know if I don't know if I would say that Hawkins and Larry's are like bad maps for Demogorgon. I think it's kind of more so my personal preference. You just have to play in like more of a boring way, I suppose, like lean more on your portal's undetectability and play more of like a macro focused play style rather than like committing to longer chases on those maps. But I would say that like if I had to pick one map currently, I would probably say like current Eyrie of Crows, even though it's getting adjusted soon, is probably the map that I get brought to the most and have the least success on.
Yeah, definitely the flavor of the month thing. And
yeah,
with map offerings going away soon, TM, wondering if we will see another like flavor of the month map before they go away, really.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, dude. People have been talking about Badham a lot more recently, and
my
distaste for Badham, it's been like years, like at this point. Like, I really hope they do something to Badham, because even Survivor, it's boring.
I remember I saw that tweet from Tofu, and he was like, I can't believe everyone's sleeping on Badham as a map, and I'm like, if I start seeing more Badham offerings, I'm going to come for you. Like,
That's hella funny, actually.
I hate that map. I need it evaporated, like Raccoon City was in canon. Like, I need it gone.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And while we're talking about techs that you just brought up, does your killer have any techs you'd like to share with the class? So let's go with like the common ones into the more niche ones, because I'm sure you got a lot to work with here. Not looking at my DM with like 8 different bullet points for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, interesting.
Curious.
Well, Demo definitely has a lot of like unique techs or like things that you can do. But yes, Demo does have a lot of unique techs and things that you can do. One like immediate one is that when you hold down a fully charge shred. So, well, actually, let me back up a little bit. So you can prep your shred for 0.65 seconds and you'll get a little hiss, and that will allow you to do like a little 6-meter mini shred, which is really useful for shutting down a lot of loops. Or you can hold it down for a full second and your shred will go about 11 meters as a result. In particular, though, with the fully charged shred, you can actually hold down directional keys to slightly influence where your shred is going to land.
Whoa.
So ever so slightly, but it is very relevant in a lot of tiles. So like if you release a fully charged shred and hold down A as you release that, you will curve slightly to the left, which can actually allow you to hit some survivors that are like slightly behind walls, like on the left side. And the same is true for like holding D if you want to do for the right, and then S if you want to go a slightly like less distance. So that's like a really, really useful thing, especially because survivors get a little wiggly, you know, when you try to go for the shred, as I'm sure you know.
They get a little wiggly. Yep.
Yeah, they get a little wiggly, they get a little, you know, a little scared. So in that same vein, what you can do if the survivor is hugging a wall, most of the time experienced survivors, they're going to try to fray out from the wall, right, to dodge your shred.
Yep.
So you can actually shred at an angle and then curve into the wall by like holding A or S depending on where you are, and that'll allow you to hit the survivor pretty much the majority of the time, even if they try to reposition slightly. So definitely something to keep in mind. And then one thing I like to do against mainly like inexperienced people that aren't really looking behind them, but sometimes they can catch other people off guard, is most survivors know that you can break a pallet with your shred. So the second the pallet is dropped and they see you charge the shred, they're like, oh shit, he's gonna break the pallet, like I gotta go, and they leave the loop, right? You can just like tap the shred and look down and then just let it go, and the survivors effectively zone themselves because they've tried to pre-leave the tile, and most of the time you can just hit them before they can get back to the tile, and they'll be in a significantly worse spot as a result. And another thing that we touched on before is the ability to do a mini shred or a fully charged shred off of an elevated surface. This can allow you to traverse the map in like several locations. Usually this is like from like the top of main buildings or hills, but outside of some different invisible walls that have been placed by behavior, this can allow you to cover like a very, very long amount of distance, and can also allow you to go through like windows. So like as an example, if you're on like a hill on Autohaven or McMillan and there's like a long wall jungle gym or like a TL wall or shack window that's like facing the hill, you can actually do a shred and go through the window to really catch people off guard. It's going to be really hard to hit them from an elevated surface with that initial shred, but like if you land on top of their head and Goomba stomp them, like you're going to get the hit anyways. Like it doesn't really matter that much. And most survivors are not expecting that at all. It's like sometimes they'll like panic, like you can kind of see them like run into a wall because they just get scared that you flew through a window like 2 meters away from them. So that's like really, really nice. Another one is the ability to bait survivors and kind of like flush them out if they're trying to go for a flashlight save by faking putting a portal on top of the dying state survivor's body, because the animation to place the portal looks very similar to the start of the pickup animation. Sometimes when the survivors see that animation, they will run from cover to try to get the flashlight save, but then like you're not actually picking up. So they're just right in front of you and they're giving themselves away, and then you can usually get a free tag.
Oh,
so
I know.
Definitely something definitely something to keep in mind that I may or may not have done when I've sniped horse on Swift Knight. So that's
actually did that like yesterday.
Yes. Well, you know, it also works even better too if you act like you haven't seen the survivor. Like if you have seen the survivor and then you just kind of like act like you don't know where they are and they put themselves in a worse spot, that can also be pretty helpful for you. And then kind of moving into more like intermediate, I guess, like tips. I would say the number one tech that I see most people do on demo that is probably going to get you more hits than a lot of other stuff on the list is the car tech. The car tech, essentially, there are several cars on Autohaven, Badham Preschool, which is like one of the things I was saying makes Badham a little bit more fun, that do not have collision. So you can effectively slide off of the car, and it turns like a traditionally fairly safe pallet by a lot of respects into a very unsafe pallet, especially with Badham main, because there's normally the car that's in the front, like next to the white fence, and then the car that's around the back. It actually kind of makes like main building slightly fun to run as demo, which is like kind of unheard of. Like really nobody likes doing anything revolving around that building and white fence. So yeah, that's like pretty cool. That's like the one thing I load into Badham and I'm like a little crumb of excitement. Like that's kind of like what I'm thinking about. Another thing that you can do is with all other killers, you can do what's called a lunge tech, which is like you essentially lunge off of the ledge, and then while you're mid recovery, you can rotate your camera, right, to go a different way or influence where you fall. You can do the same thing with demo, but with a shred. So all the way up to like 11 meters away, you can do a fully charged shred when approaching a drop down, and you will like fall down at the earliest possible point. So it essentially like it saves you like a small amount of time because your recovery from that shred is midair. Like obviously there are some requirements, like you need to have have a straight shot to go like off the ledge and everything. But it can be really useful on some maps. And then when you're coming out of basement, another thing you can do is you can actually, there's a little spot where you can shred. If you think the survivor is going to leave the basement in the shack and go out the window, you can actually shred at the top of the basement stairs while not fully clearing the stairs, and you'll actually slide from the basement stairs and shred at the window, which saves you just that little small amount of time when someone's trying to get out of basement, and that's like pretty useful. And then these other ones are kind of like different variations of like sliding or things to do with collision that are more like for fun but can help you in certain situations. Just like a couple examples. In Badham preschool, there's like that hole that you can fall into or like you go around. With demo, if you're entering from the side where you're in the center of the school, you can actually shred across the hole and land on the other side, and also hit survivors on the other side. But you cannot do it from the other direction. Otherwise, you'll like flush yourself down the hole like a toilet. So don't do that because it'll be really embarrassing. Not only will they like completely get away, but then you'll just like flush yourself down the toilet. And then on corn maps, there are several tiles that have like hay bales that do not have collision. So you can actually slide off of those and shred around them to deny the pallet a lot faster. And these are super counterintuitive. Like survivors, like I don't know if I've actually ever had a survivor that expects it. Like car tech is like a little bit more like popular now, but nobody ever expects you to slide off a Haybale. They're like, what the hell just happened? So that can really help you get some hits. And then on Coldwind as well, there are those like, I just call them harvesters. I don't really know exactly what they are. If you shred from the side of the ramp over like the hay bales, like the hay bale side where you can kind of like get over and there's like that window. If you shred at a perfect angle, you can actually fly through the air and do a little bit of sky demo. And the cool thing about this is that you can either just go straight and get a lot of distance, or you could influence your movement mid-air by holding A or D, and you can actually like cut turns and like land on top of survivors that are, you know, at a different location. So that's pretty useful. And then the last one that is like notable that I have to talk about is the pig jump on the game. There's like that pit where there's like the floating pig head, and you can essentially deny the pallet by shredding on the side through the pallet, and you can like bounce up into the air on top of the like I don't know, like what do you call them, like the structures
metal
there. Yeah,
thing.
like the storage stuff. Yeah,
I know what
you
it
can
is.
either
I don't know what
bounce
it's
up
called,
there.
though. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, so yeah, so you can bounce up there and just like hang out up there, like if you want to, or you could use your directional movement to actually like shred across the hole and then wrap around to the left or to the right to cut a survivor off. And that's another one too that survivors are like not expecting most of the time. And there's like a lot of, you know, like little small things you can do, but most of them are like just for fun things to like, you know, have fun or impress the survivors like you're playing against if you're all, you know, just like having a good time.
All right, nice. So a lot of techniques, one might say. A lot of techniques.
Yeah, definitely. I think demo is one of those killers that, you know, admittedly does seem like fairly basic in design, but there's a lot of like practical things or I guess text that you can do to really like amplify your game or catch people off guard.
So would you say that's like one of the most common misconceptions about Demogorgon? Like, is there anything that people don't understand that you wish they did? Like, if you could beam a thought about the Demogorgon into people's heads, like, here's this thing that you're just not getting that I get and I'm trying to teach you about, or what's misunderstood about Demogorgon?
Yeah, well, I think the thing I hear the most is that like Demogorgon's skill ceiling is like really low, or that Demogorgon is like kind of boring to play, which obviously is like pretty subjective, or also has like a really low skill ceiling. But I think that there are a lot of things that you can do to make your experience with Demogorgon a lot more interesting, or, you know, things that you can do to improve as a killer player or end your chases faster. Things like the text that we kind of discussed are very, very helpful for that. Like, I don't really think demo is like has a very, very high skill ceiling, but I think there's a lot more that meets the eye. And I think that's like a big thing that I want to tell people is that if you put time into this killer and try to like figure things out, you can, you know, get a much better result. I think that's all I got for now.
Just a little deeper than he appears.
Yeah, he has a lot more depth than meets the eye, especially because like most people just think he's like, you know, this average tier jack of all trades killer, master of none that, you know, doesn't really like have a lot going for him.
Okay, so not as simple as you would think. While we're giving him a run for his being simple or not, if little Bazooka Timmy 97 is playing the Demogorgon for the first time, he picked them up, he loves Stranger Things, big Stranger Things fan, what is some general advice you'd give to him? Not like just a 5-paragraph essay, but like very first touch on tips? What does he need to know?
Okay, yeah. Well, first thing I would recommend doing is the second you buy demo is just go into a custom game versus bots, put on like whatever slowdown you have to make it so they don't do the gens very fast, and just in the open practice the minimum amount of time it takes to do a short shred versus a long shred, and like take note of the distance that you travel with both, because once you have that like foundational knowledge, it makes it a lot easier to like play tiles and like understand what you can and can't do. And then I would also say, as far as like loading in for your first couple games as demo, try to put portals down like usually in between two gens, like where you spawn, and then at minimum, once you like finish your other chase, put down a portal that's like a decent number of tiles or distance away from the initial portal that you placed. So you have at least two different points that you can go that are on each other side of the map to travel. Because I think a big mistake that I see from newer demo players is that they just like don't use portals at all. But they are a very powerful tool. Maybe not compared to some of the like best mobility or teleportation abilities we have right now in DBD, but they can definitely like enhance your game and save you a lot of time. And then, also I was going to say too, on that same vein, you don't have to like, if survivor looks like they're pathing towards like a pallet or a narrow hallway or like a window, you don't have to immediately release your shred. I see a lot of people kind of get mixed up where they just like think the survivor is just going to forehead and animation lock themselves into, you know, whatever it is that they're doing. But you can totally be patient. Most survivors will try to juke the last possible second. One thing you can do is, if the survivor does have an item and their item disappears, it means that they are committed to that vault. So from there, you can, hit them with the shred. But if they do have an item and they're running towards the window and like they're getting really close, but their item has disappeared, they're probably going to try to juke. So you can just hold your shred and then cancel it and M1 them if you just get on top of them, or you can like try to predict and send the shred like at a slightly different angle. The worst possible thing is like kind of getting got and then, like colliding with the wall and then like they vault the window and you're like, damn.
Don't get got.
Yeah, don't get got. Don't get got.
Is there anything that you would change specifically about Demogorgon besides like maybe a minor add-on pass type deal, but just like anything at all, add-ons, accessibility kit, balance, vibe, whatever? Is there anything necessarily problematic that needs to be changed, or do you think he's just like pretty good where he is?
Yeah, I think overall, outside of the add-ons, I think Demogorgon's in a pretty great spot. Like I was saying before, I really don't want them to buff the shred. I think that if they like nerf the shred and made it like more clunky when you cancel it, I think it would pretty bad to play, I'll be honest. I think they could buff the portals like a little bit. One quality of life thing that I would like to see is the ability to like destroy one of your own portals. I think that would be like really interesting and would kind of add a little bit more depth to the killer, because you can use your portals more proactively. Because as it stands right now, you have a limited number of portals that can actively be on the map at one time. But if the survivors don't cleanse them, you don't get those portals back. There's no way to like remotely detonate them or anything like that outside of one add-on, which is a really bad add-on. So like if you are newer to the killer and you put your portals in like some bad spots, you're stuck with it if they don't cleanse them. So that would be, I think, something that I would like to see changed. But overall, I'm really happy with where Demo is. I think he's super balanced, and that's kind of what I have to say.
Do you think that updates in the game overall, and like changes to Demogorgon specifically and changes to perks, maps, reworks, etc., like how has the game change affected the Demogorgon in particular? Do you think that buffs and nerfs were fair? Do you think new perks or new maps have been positive? What's the deal with that?
Oh yeah, good question. I would say the direction that DBD has been going, as far as like the new maps that they've been making and like reworking and adding variations of maps, for the most part, I would say has negatively affected the Demogorgon. Within the last couple years, we've gotten some very strong, mainly survivor-sided maps. We've gotten maps that have like some not so great collision, or have a lot of visual clutter or actual physical clutter on the ground that makes it harder to shred. And also the addition of invisible walls on older, more beloved maps for demo have made it so it's harder to do more interesting stuff. Like one of my previous things to do before was you could use a hill to like land on top of a tile on like Autohaven or Macmillan, and there are some areas now where there's just an invisible wall there. Can't do that as an example. And then as far as like balancing decisions is concerned, I would say the one big thing that I noticed and also was admittedly celebrating was the Dead Hard nerf. Demo is... It's really hard for Demo to deal with Dead Hard, especially if the survivors, like the previous iteration where survivors had the ability to use it at any time they were injured, but it allowed them to get that extra like little bit of endurance. There are some situations where you want to be rounding a corner with your shred to deny the tile, and you don't really have the liberty to like wait So like sometimes like it's just more optimal for you to send the shred. And if the survivor has dead hard, you just like for the most part can't do that because they're going to be able to dead hard it, like provided their internet allows them or the servers allow them to, like the majority of the time. Once they got that hit, they get the the additional speed boost from the endurance hit, and they're able to make it to like another tile. But with the dead hard change and making it so it's only really run like by like turbo juicers in pubs that are just like hardcore dead hard fans, most of the time I don't really encounter dead hard. But when I do, it's like, damn, like that survivor like really got me. Like I should have been patient in that spot. I think if there's anything else like immediately is affected. I don't think there's anything really in the last like couple years as far as balance that has really helped demo that much. Like I would probably say there are like some generic things like the big DS nerf where like it made like DS before was like an invulnerability shield for like 60 seconds, so you just do whatever you wanted. That getting nerfed was like a really big change for demo, but demo still does struggle with people using second chance perks really proactively. One of the hardest situations to deal with is like you get a bad map and like survivors are like aggressively using their anti-tunnel perks to like step into your chases and take hits, like things like off the record or like unbreakable DS. And that's still kind of like a prevalent issue, I suppose, but maybe a little bit less so now that DS is a little bit weaker and not as many people run it.
For certain. But he's kind of just like, he's got some good things have happened, some bad things have happened, but for the majority, it has trended downwards for the Demogorgon in particular.
Yeah, I would probably say so. I think the biggest like breaking point, I guess, was the release of the two like alien maps, Toba Landing and Nostromo. Both of them just have like a lot of like visual clutter or actual like physical clutter on the ground. The collision is like really weird at some tiles, and it just like makes it harder to like shred around like certain surfaces or like see survivors, and that's like kind of been a big thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel the same way. So
yeah.
And I'll say my last like gameplay how he feels type question, the last one I have for that is, do you think that maining Demogorgon specifically has given you more transferable gameplay skills to other killers or even games?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I would say that Demo is like a really good killer to start playing DBD with. He, like I was saying before, he has a little bit of everything, a little bit of chase power, a little bit of mobility. He kind of really teaches you how to run loops optimally. Mm-hmm. And, we were kind of joking around about the Weskerification, or maybe more so the demoification of killers when it comes to like dash killers. But if you're pretty good with demo, most of the time, other dash killers are like pretty intuitive and like easy to pick up. Those killers like immediately being things like Dracula, Wesker, Houndmaster, stuff like that. And then as far as like other transferable knowledge, I would definitely say the biggest thing is like patience when it comes to PvP games. If you like are constantly like releasing your shred and like not being patient and like waiting, like taking time, taking a quick second to see how the survivors are going to react, you're going to get punished a lot of the time. So I think playing demo has taught me to be like a lot more patient when it comes to PvP games, and not fall for like the immediate obvious like counterplay that survivors try to do.
Just patience. I've been hearing that a lot. You'd be I don't know if you'd be surprised, but a lot of prolific killer players have been saying that for sure. Is that patience is very important to being good at killer.
Another thing to add on to that is that there's a really big difference between the survivor player who is like really inexperienced and doesn't really know how to play against demo versus the survivor player that is very experienced and specifically knows how to play against Demogorgon. Like the way that you have to approach tiles back to back it's super different, and having that patience against like really good players and the knowledge to expect what it is they're going to do to try to counter you makes playing demo just like a lot more interesting, because that's kind of the issue when survivors are super inexperienced, is like they're just going to run in a straight line and then you're just going to shred them every time, right? And then like they're just going to keep getting hit by the shred over and over again. But there's a lot of give and take against experienced survivor players, and I enjoy playing against people that are a lot more experienced on average.
All right, cool. And now my fun question before I do the last two questions. How do you feel about Demogorgon's cosmetic options? Do you think they have enough? Do you think they don't have enough? And say, hypothetically, if you could make any skin for the Demogorgon, what would it be? And what is your current favorite, fit to wear?
Okay. Yeah, let me know if I don't answer all of them, because I might miss one. But the first one that I want to touch on is Netflix. If you're listening, just give us like 10 more demo cosmetics. I'll buy them. Like, don't be shy. It's okay. The number one thing I want to see is actually blighted demo. I think blighted demo would be like pretty cool. I've always kind of like thought about what if demo had a legacy skin, and I think blighted demo would kind of like scratch that itch. My favorite personal full cosmetics to run on demo is like the Demogorgon with the black like plating that he kind of has. But my favorite cosmetic piece is the collar. I pretty much rock with the collar every single game. The collar's where it's at. I think it leans into the dog persona that the community has to demo quite well. And I noticed it just, I don't know, people are just like really friendly when I use the cosmetic. And do I think that demo has enough cosmetics? I'm kind of the opinion that the more cosmetics the better, especially when it comes to licensed killers, because it can be kind of hard to, I guess, get cosmetics for licensed killers, that it makes it like very, very exciting when your killer main that is licensed is getting a cosmetic, which
tell me about
may
it.
not have happened for somebody recently. So yeah, like I was saying before, I would love to see like Blighted demo. I can't think of any other specific cosmetics that I would like other than the Blighted demo. But I have like a lot of faith in Behavior's art team to deliver, because they've been doing some like amazing works when it comes to skins recently. So I'm gonna eat it up regardless. If there's a new demo skin, like I'm gonna buy it on day one.
They cooked with the Nemesis one. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was like the one wishlist item. We got it. It's fire. I'm just saying, like, it's real good. It's a real good
Dude, it looks
skin.
so good. Like now there's like no reason to take that cosmetic off, you know? Like
yeah, it's like
you're just gonna have that all the time.
Like, don't get me wrong, I love the RE3 remakes like design, but it's just bringing back the classic in HD is like, okay. I was kind of gagged a little bit, you know? Bought it day one, bought it hour one. I'm like, I'm morally obligated. Anyway, you wanted to talk earlier about the license leaving, so I don't really have like a specific how I'd want to ask this, so I'm just gonna kind of let you cook on how you feel like talking about it.
Well, first things first, when we got the leak that Stranger Things license was going to be leaving DBD, I was on some copium. I was hoping that was not true. Like, there's no way that's going to happen. And at the time, I was doing like news related TikToks for DBD, and I remember getting the official confirmation that it was leaving and having to make a TikTok for it. And dude, I was so sad. And I think the biggest reason is because, like, as a content creator for a specific killer, like most people that are coming to you are like, they want to see how you approach the killer, or they want to learn the killer for themselves. And the inability to purchase the chapter for that period of time, and, you know, also potentially never again, kind of made it so my motivation to make educational content for the killer was a lot lower. Because at least in my mind, it seemed that like not a lot of new people are going to have access to the license. It would also kind of stink because like I was still playing demo like the entire time, like after the licenses went away. And like I remember specifically there was one time that I played against somebody and they said, "What killer is that? I've never seen that killer before." And I had to tell them. And then they came back a couple minutes later and then they said, "I can't find him in the store. Where is he?"
Bro.
And I was like devastated. Like I was like, damn, like that perfectly encompasses like how I felt about the situation, because the majority of my content has been like, you know, pretty like for fun, but also with a slight little like educational, you know, lean to it. And
you learn here sometimes in the GGSAREUP stream.
Exactly. And, you know, I had pretty much built my DBD like stream on Demogorgon. So it was a big hit when Demo's license went away. And, you know, to lose access to the license was like a big hit for my motivation. But I was still playing Demo throughout the whole time. And when Demo, you know, it was announced that he was coming back to the Fog, I was super, super happy. And there was a lot of like positive support and reception, and like the desire to get more educational content for Demo was like definitely there. And it was very fulfilling to see like people recommend me as like somebody for newer demo players to go to help like learn the killer. And I don't know, just like very, very wholesome that people went out of their way to request that Demo and the Stranger Things chapter like return to DBD, because they just have such a strong love for the chapter.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I kind of feel the same way about the Nemesis now. It's like, hey, aren't you that Nemesis guy? And I'm like, maybe.
You're like, whoa, wait, that's me? Like,
wait, that's
whoa.
me? I'm that
Or like
guy?
when people like recognize you like in the Fog now as like, oh my god, horceror? Yeah, like I know you. You're from the hit Nemesis guide on youtube.com.
The hit Nemesis guide on youtube.com. Wow.
Yeah, so like there would be like, there's been a couple occasions where people were like, oh my god, like I played against you before, like yeah, when I used to make like a lot more YouTube videos, like, oh my god, like I've like seen you, like your thumbnails like on YouTube and everything, and I'd be like, wow, like that's pretty cool. Like yeah, like I'm the Demogorgon fan, you know? So
a little off topic, of course, but I have like one thumbnail where you're in it, and it's not the Demogorgon, but I think low key, I think I cooked on that thumbnail.
oh, you're talking about the Trapper one, right?
The thief, yeah.
Dude, that shit was peak, actually. I wonder how many people clicked on it, like thinking it was like actually a new killer that was getting added.
All of them, obviously.
Yeah, that match was really, really fun. I'm glad that you immortalized that with that fucking thumbnail too, by the way.
I worked so hard on it. It was a really good thumbnail.
It was peak.
But yeah, as far as like the chapter leaving, and then so would you say that when it came back, when it got announced like officially coming back, that re-motivated you to do more Demogorgon stuff?
I would say, yeah, definitely. The main thing was that there was an influx of people that were going out of their way to look up the Demogorgon for the first time in a really long time. I was able to answer like a lot more questions, show a lot more stuff. I've always kind of had a love-hate relationship when it comes to like producing content on other platforms, even though it's, you know, obviously the best way to grow your brand.
Yep.
Because the analytics side of things can be very demotivating from time to time, and that's actually a big reason that I stopped posting on TikTok, is constantly trying to like hack the algorithm. Like, you think you do something really, really great.
I hate the TikTok algorithm. That's why I don't post on it. So
yeah, like I would, you know, there would be some times where I would like put a lot of time into something. It would be like a really, I don't know, like funny or educational thing. And I'd be like, damn, I'm really happy with that. And, you know, just completely flop. And then I'd post like the most low effort, nothing burger content, just like for fun, like on a whim. And it would be like, you know, my most viewed video. And I'd be like, damn, damn, that's like kind of cool, but also like kind of stinks. So like with just life being busier these days, most of the time I'm pretty much just only streaming, but there's always that little goblin in the back of my mind that's telling me to hop back on YouTube and like make more educational content. Like,
hop back on the Demogorgon grind.
Yes.
So my last couple of questions here actually are kind of relating to this type of thing, like with licenses leaving and, you know, game quality and just overall Dead by Daylight. How long do you think it's going to last before it finally like ends?
Ooh, I hope that we are 70 years old and Master Chief is coming to DVD and like we'll just like jam some games, as like I don't even know what Survivor will be new at that time, but like I just hope that DVD continues to thrive.
They had Buster Keaton.
Oh my god.
100 years
like they're probably
later.
just gonna start adding like more, you know, like actual real life celebrities like Nicolas Cage.
They had Abraham Lincoln.
Like, yeah, bro. Like, make sure you pre-run to Shaq with Abraham Lincoln versus Master Chief. I don't know. I think DVD has had a lot of success over the last 10 years. They definitely have had like a monopoly on the genre, and now that they're kind of branching more into like other types of horror that are from like different mediums or styles, like things like anime. They've even done some collabs with music creators and also just like shows, not like cult classic horror movies, but more like modern shows, like things like Stranger Things or games. I think there's tons of content as far as licenses are concerned to explore.
Yeah, I could name like a dozen just off the top of my head, and that's like not even niche stuff, you know? Like they have content to go for years and years and years. They just have to be like, hey, y'all want some money? Put your character in our game.
Exactly. And, you know, like even more so than that, like I was so enthralled with Unknown's release. And as far as I'm aware, the people that worked on the teaser trailers and everything are no longer working at Behavior, which is a shame. But that like spoiler season, dude, I was like glued to Twitter because they did such a great job with like the kind of like, I guess, analog horror-esque kind of theme
100%.
for it. And I think that there's a lot of other room to explore different types of horror as well with original chapters. So short answer, I think the DVD is going to, at the very least, outside of something insane that Behavior does monetarily, last for like at least another 10 years. And hopefully it continues to last until, you know, like a very, very long time, because that means I get to continue to play and stream it. It'd be awesome.
Until I'm dead.
But one thing I do think that they need to kind of like do is like they need to kind of address the reputation of the game like being very buggy. I think that's like one of the number one things I hear, even from people that don't really actively play Dead by Daylight, is like the game from the outside looking in seems like there's a lot that could be done. Like it's almost like a mess to a lot of people that have tried it.
Yeah, we need DVD 2.
Like I think the biggest thing I hear is like Bug by Daylight in response to one of like many different things that can happen inside a match that is not intent.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
Horse, I know that you did a video about like some things that you would change for DVD.
Yeah.
And like I know, I'm just like I was right there with you with like a lot of changes that I think need to be made for the long-term health of the game and to be taken seriously by, you know, like a lot of people in the gaming community as a whole.
Because it feels like it still has that indie jank, but it has like an actual studio, you know? It's like a little, like, don't get me wrong, Dead by Daylight's like it is probably my most played game ever, but it's definitely got like it doesn't have the polish it needs, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I totally agree. It's almost like it could be like, is this game like early access? You know what I mean? Like there's been a couple of times that I've seen some things. I'm like, wow, I don't know if this game is like, it doesn't seem like this game is fully released from the outside looking in. So
yeah.
I totally get what you're saying.
But I would love a big update, you know, just a 2.0, like if they have to remake the game and then just port all the content over to like a DBD2 or like, you know, a Live by Dawn or whatever the fuck Dead by Daylight 2 is going to get called, and then just like have all the same content, but it's just like it runs better for Head. That'd be awesome. Here's the Storm did it extremely successfully. I don't think it's impossible. I think it would definitely be tough if they don't have people working on it, and if they do, they're probably gonna like keep hush hush about it until like down the line when they actually have something to show. But it would be nice. It would be nice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I do think that the update to Unreal Engine 5 did make the game look like a little bit nicer, so that was like a pretty welcome change.
Yeah, so like, you know, we get something every once in a while.
Yeah, we get a little crumb. That's kind of the drip feeding
like
style of like updates.
You know? I'd like a meal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a little hungry around here.
Can I have a burger, please? I don't want a single fry.
Waiter, one full update, please.
You're gonna get Ashley J. Williams. That's it.
We're gonna get him shitting in the tall grass.
This is true. So, my last question for you. The very last one.
Okay.
The final thing. What would make you drop Demogorgon completely, forever, get rid of him, never play him again? What would be the change that breaks the camel's back?
Ooh, a sad reality to think about. I would have to say, I think the number one thing that would be a really big deterrent for me would be to completely rework how the shred works. I think the shred is like my favorite part of the gameplay loop for demo. And if they like did a large scale change to the shred years down the line, kind of similar to like what they're planning on doing with Skull Merchant currently, as far as the preview is concerned, where like the power in and of itself is completely changed, I think that might be the biggest thing that they could do to kind of ruin the killer for me. But I also do want to say that like my love for demo, I don't know, it like runs pretty deep. Like I would be more than willing to continue to give the killer a try, see if I'm having fun. Like even if something seemed like it would be like a really big detriment to the killer. And I also, this is like a quick sidebar, but like a lot of my branding does revolve around demo, but I kind of wanted to show people that I do have a leopard gecko named Demo after Demogorgon, and he's like the honorary mascot of our channel. So maybe I'll send you a picture of him.
Yeah, put Demogorgon here.
Yes, put him as a skin, please, Behavior. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, the Demo-Gorgon.
You're right. That's what it would say on the scoreboard at the end.
Yeah.
Perfect. But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of like what I think would need to happen. Or I guess some kind of like major redesign aesthetically for the killer, but because it's licensed content, I don't think that would ever realistically happen.
Yeah, they're just gonna change our Freddy to the OG Freddy as a baseline. That'll get people to stop playing him for sure. But no, yeah, that's kind of all I've got for you now. So I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate it very much. Our past couple of Demogorgons were unavailable because they had, life things happened. If you were curious, that's what's been going on. It's not my place to really like dig into their lives. So I'm just kind of, shit happens basically. But I do appreciate you coming on, being the Demogorgon, talking about the Demogorgon. You definitely gave me a lot of info. This interview is going up on an hour and 52 minutes here before editing. And yeah, so now I'm just going to give you your section where you can talk about, your content, if you have anything upcoming, where people can find you, all your links. I'll put them on screen and the floor is yours. So go for it.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, man. I'm always super excited to talk about demo, and I'm really happy that you reached out to me, regarding doing an interview for demo. But yes, I mainly stream Monday and Tuesday at 4 p.m. PST, sometimes on Thursday and Friday, but it really does depend because, life does just kind of get on the way. I like to play both sides fairly often on stream, but I would say that like demo is like the main killer that I'd like to go out of my way to play. I'm also going to be looking into, producing more content, primarily on YouTube within the next year, whenever I have time. So I'm always really happy to meet new people that are interested in demo and are, looking to kind of hang out. If you do stop by, please mention that you did hear about me from the interview, because I'm always totally down to meet and talk to people from Horse's community, because I love this community.
So where are they finding you? What are your links?
Yeah, once again, I am GGSAREUP. Most people do call me GG's or Grant. You can find me on all of my socials. That's Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter as well. Yes, sorry. I just go by GGSAREUP on all those platforms. It's the easiest way to get in contact with me. And coming and by my stream and hanging out is probably where you'll hear from me the most often, I guess.
All right. Well, very cool. And now I just want to say thank you to everyone who watched, listened, viewed, perceived, was here, mentally or not. Like, maybe you were locked in, maybe you weren't, I don't know. But if you were enjoying this content, I appreciate you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of my talking to everyone journey, I guess. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, noon, morning, evening, night, whatever it might be for you. And I will catch you in the next one. So see you when I see you, and bye bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.